Hello and welcome to this episode of the Print Mind Over Matter. All of us have experienced bullying in some form or the other, even if we don't know that it was bullying at that point of time. और ये problem जो है ये schools में सबसे ज़्यादा common है. And because of this, a lot of youngsters, especially teenagers, because वो puberty के cusp पे होते हैं, there are other things happening with them, are more prone to developing mental health issues because sometimes they are unable to discuss it even with their peers or families or even teachers. एंड आज की डेट पे साइबर बुलिंग जैसी चीज़ें और ज़्यादा फ्रीक्वेंट और नॉर्मल हो गई है क्योंकि हम सब सोशल मीडिया में है और लेट्स बी ऑनेस्ट विद आवरसेल्व्स, हम सब बोलते हैं तो है कि हम सोने जा रहे हैं 2 घंटा हम रील्स पे बैठे रहते हैं एंड चिल्ड्रन आर मोर प्रॉबली यूज्ड टू डूइंग दैट. So to discuss how bullying impacts mental wellness, I have with me Dr. Aaakanksha Bhatia, who will tell us in detail what's the impact of bullying, how can that be prevented, and what are other measures that can be taken. Hello, welcome Aaakanksha. Thank you for coming.
Thank you so much, Tina, for having me here.
Okay, let's start with bullying जो है as a concept. Is there something specific जो psychology में इसको, is there a way, a lens through which it's looked at, because we know that it impacts mental wellness, and how exactly does it impact mental wellness?
Okay, so to answer your first question, how bullying is looked at in psychology, it can be looked at from various perspectives.
Okay.
So when I'm working with a teenager and I know this child has faced bullying, I try to look at it from different perspectives. So first is the perspective of the self. How this person has experienced bullying, because as we all know, everybody is different. So the experience, which is very individual to me, will be very different. So there'll be like a lot of complexities and a lot of layers to it. Right? Second way would be to look at from the perspective of all the stakeholders around. So be it your parents, be it your teachers, be it the school authorities or any other place where the bullying has happened, that perspective also needs to be taken. And third and most important is the socio-cultural perspective within which the bullying has happened. Because oftentimes, so when we understand bullying and when we look at the types of bullying, we usually just say, okay, one is physical aggression, another one could be verbal harassment, another one could be, let's say, cyberbullying. But there are many other bullyings as well. One is called prejudicial bullying, wherein a lot of social exclusion comes into the picture. So you might be bullied because you belong to a certain culture, you belong to a certain caste, religion, and maybe you have a certain kind of body, right? So there is a lot of bullying that happens on the basis of one's body, and we have all heard, words and names like "tum chote ho," "tum kale ho," "tum mote ho," all of that. That all kinds of accounts for bullying. So here, when we are talking about something as complex as bullying, we cannot leave out anything. And one more and very interesting point here is that sometimes bullying can also happen when the other person is doing nothing or the person is just going silent and ignoring you. That is also bullying, right? So the way the bullying has happened and the way it is going to impact a person can have like a multi-range of kind of impact. So we need to assess all these factors. We need to take them into account to be able to start on with the therapeutic intervention or a generic intervention that we need to do with the child.
Okay. So I wanted to know that, okay, fine, if a child has experienced bullying, right, and he or she is struggling and maybe unable to immediately ask for help, right?
Right.
Is there some way or are there some common symptoms? I don't know if symptoms is the right word, but are there common behavioral traits that a child or a teenager who's being bullied often tends to exhibit? Like, do they exhibit, is it a cry for help without actually asking for help?
At times, yes.
Okay.
But we have also seen certain cases where there haven't been any sign.
Okay.
Right? But yes, more or less there would be certain markers which will kind of tell you certain behavioral markers wherein you can kind of identify that something is going wrong. Now, what is going wrong? That maybe you are not able to identify as a teacher or as a parent. That is why, we kind of promote so much about mental health conversations, that people at least should be aware and should be able to identify. So certain signs, if you want to see, some physical, very simple physical signs could be that the child is often having stomachache, headache, they don't want to go to school. Right? That's like the basic, mama aaj peet dukh raha hai, aaj sar dukh raha hai, nahi jana cha rahe, right? And we just feel, oh, they are just making it up. So we just push them towards the school without realizing why this particular kid is not wanting to go to school. So these could be physical. The child is not eating properly. The child is not sleeping properly. So there could be either more or less sleep, either more or less appetite. So these could be certain signs when it comes to the physicality, or the child is falling sick often, because our mental health is also kind of impacting our immune system. So there are children we see who often fall sick a lot. Maybe there is no particular cause for it, right? The parents might just feel, oh, it's Delhi, there's a lot of viruses around.
Right.
But that's not the case. There's also a lot of, impact of your mental health on your physical health as well. So that could be one. Another could be like your behavioral, certain basic behavioral symptoms. The child is too irritable, is a little more aggressive, or has totally become a recluse, not wanting to talk to anybody, just gone silent, just feeling too dejected. So emotional, again, you can see the child is crying endlessly, or again, just going very silent and not being able to express, and maybe just wanting to but not able to, right? So there are a lot of signs, but for that, I always keep telling and emphasizing this, when I'm talking to the parents and the teachers, that here you need to be more proactive. You need to keep your eyes, ears open, right? Often what happens when we see the students, they go back home, the parents don't have time to even ask them, how was your day, or what specific happened. So when you're not even making an eye contact with your kid, you're just bringing them to, just bringing them home and just dropping them at home and then forgetting, and then again your laptop and got busy. Who will the child talk to? So I think that is something very important. So there might be certain underlying signs, but to be able to identify that, you need to be very mindful as a parent or as a teacher.
Okay. So coming back to the idea that we obviously, the person who's being bullied is of course often the victim, there's that, but there's also the idea that why is the bullying happening, right? We get to understand that, okay, this person is being bullied. So could you shed more light on that? Like this whole system of why is somebody bullying somebody else, right? It's not exactly the normal setting of a person, right? That, oh, I'll just
go and bully.
Yeah.
So see, I believe that bullies, they become bullies over a period of time, right? Nobody's born a bully, right? So it's never that I am born and I'm like, today, okay, I'm going to start bullying when I enter kindergarten. However, yes, I've done my doctoral work on the same topic, and we did find that kids as young as nursery and KG students, they are capable of excluding their peers. They may not understand conceptually what is bullying or what is social exclusion, but they are capable of doing it, right? There was a social field experiment that we designed, and we found that most of them were able to do this. Now, coming back to the point, the person who becomes a bully might have been, a victim at one point. So what is bullying? Bullying is basically an imbalance of power, right? It's something very intentional, and it's an aggressive behavior that you are depicting towards the other person. That aggressive behavior may be active aggression or maybe passive aggression, right? Like you are just spreading rumors about a person. Now, in this particular scenario, it could be the situation that the person has been neglected, has been himself or herself a victim of abuse. They may have not got the emotional support that they need from their teachers or their parents, and young kids, they are craving these days for the warmth and the affection of their parents. And it's very unfortunate that they are not getting the kind of love and affection that they deserve in most of the cases, that we see. Now, another point that, or another reason why somebody becomes a bully is also to gain attention. It's easy to throw tantrums when you know that my parents are going to attend to me or listen to me. And how is it happening? It's happening because as parents, we have kind of, reinforced this whole idea that I will only give attention when you are throwing a tantrum. Right? So it's a whole vicious cycle that kinds of revolves around it. And that's why somebody actually ends up becoming a bully, to assert power over their peers, to be able to show that, okay, I'm powerful, I have something in me. So I think that is more or less, that's the reasons that a person turns into a bully.
Okay. So what are actual, measures that can be taken either by the person who's being bullied or, teachers and parents? Like we've heard why often it happens, that there is a lack of attention that's given. And sometimes I understand that even teachers are dealing with 50 to 100 students in a class and different class throughout the day. Sometimes it's impossible to be able to pinpoint and look at a child and say, oh, is this child struggling? Do I need to? So, but are there like measures that can still help, if not like give solution which is tailor-made for every child, but at least a general setup that can be done so that at least it comes down, the rate comes down a bit?
Yes, so here again, I think we should look from three different perspectives. First perspective is the person who is being bullied, so who's the victim of bullying. So, what can I do if I'm being bullied, right? The first thing that I can do is I can give minimal response. The whole relation that we see between a bully and the person who's being bullied is that the person is instigating the other person to be able to get a response.
Right.
So what you do, you kind of reduce the amount of response that you're giving to the bully. You have to kind of learn to ignore. However, since it's younger kids at times who are involved, they can't really, ignore so easily because they are so young, they don't understand that. So in the second scenario, what you can do, you can just loudly say stop. And you have to be very loud. And this is something that we have to teach our children. Just like we teach them to say no, it's also something that we need to teach them to say no or stop when they feel that a bully is kind of attacking them. Another thing could be that they kind of agree with the bully. Now, it's a very unconventional way, but this has worked often when somebody is calling you a name, when they are doing name calling with you. And what if you say, yes, I am like that? Okay, you call me this, I accept I am like that. Again, you're taking away the power from the person,
Right.
and that's important in this case. Fourth, often I do mention it as a strategy to kids, but I always tell them that be very careful while you use them. And older kids are better at using them. It's called humor. So you make the whole situation funny. And again, the bully feels irritated. So that's the whole risk in it, that the bully might get irked and attack back. So use it with caution. Another is, and that's also very important, is to kind of break the cycle of fear. So when you look at bullying is nothing but a cycle of fear, right? That has been created between the perpetrator and the victim. So the perpetrator is constantly trying to threaten, intimidate, coerce the person who is the victim. So if you can just break the cycle of fear, I think then also the work is done. And lastly, probably these kids also need to learn some self-defense techniques. So it's and we do teach them during our sessions with school kids that how you need to do self-defense, because the most important thing over here is if something has happened in the library, if something has happened in the washroom and you were the victim, still when you are brought to the principal's office, you both are equally guilty. Right? So nobody will even understand that you were the victim because who started first? So what you do in these cases is that you never make your hands like that, because if you're doing like this, it's a normal human tendency to be able to make it like a fist and punch. When somebody is attacking you. So we always kind of teach them to keep your hands like this, so that you just push like this, don't punch, right? And you need to be more like grounded. So, your feet need to be more grounded. So these are many techniques. These are like some techniques out of the many that we teach those kids about how to physically defend yourself. Like, do not go out alone if you know that there is a bully around you. Don't even go alone to the bathroom. And then, something called as buddy system that even the teachers should implement in school. And again, as I said, we do keep talking a lot with the teachers also, that how can they identify bullying in the classroom. So let me share that as well. There's something called as buddy system. So with that, what happens is that the person who is like the victim, or who is like there could be a threat for that person, so they are been attached with a buddy. Right. So with the buddy, so what happens is they are going to the bus together, they are going to the bathroom together, they are going to wherever, library together, to playground together, so that the person is never left alone. Because bullies, they usually physically attack when you are alone. So there you need to, you are physically protected. So that could be one. As I said, there could be a lot of schools, I think, are nowadays becoming more active by starting social emotional learning, curriculums, by introducing that, which even we do with various schools, wherein we take bullying as one of the most important topics that we need to talk about with the youngsters, because there's a lot of I would say understanding that needs to be built around self-awareness, around self-regulation, emotional regulation. I think all that will be able to help to kind of prevent bullying from happening.
Okay.
Lastly, I would say with parents, what they should be doing is that they need to first act as a trusted adult, because in schools we talk a lot with the youngsters that identify a trusted adult. Who's that one person you can trust and go to if you feel that something wrong has happened to you? And oftentimes it's very unfortunate, Tina, that they are not even able to name their parents. And this is a fact I'm telling you. When I work with these teenagers, and I'm kind of shocked, not surprised, that they are not even able to take the name of, they can't say that it's my mother or it's my father. It's usually some dur ka cousin, didi, bhaiya, and not their parents. So what is it that we are doing wrong? That, the kids don't have that kind of trust on us.
Okay.
Yes. So I think building trust with the children and becoming their trusted adult, becoming their confidant, and that they know that, okay, if there's something is going wrong with me, I can come to my parents and share about it. I think that's a very, very big success as a parent that you can achieve.
Okay. So now that we've identified what other stakeholders and even the person who's a victim can can do in order to stop bullying, what about if I am exhibiting behaviors? Maybe I'm not somebody who is like, okay, I want to be a bully. And maybe there are things that I'm doing unintentionally which is causing harm to somebody. And maybe somebody has pointed it out to me, maybe I've realized, right? So what can I do to stop that behavior so that nobody else is affected by it?
That's a very nice question, Tina, and I really think that we all should ask this question to ourselves. The first thing that we should do is to be able to identify our underlying prejudices. The first step to start bullying, whether you are bullying your peer, your co-worker, or somebody in your family, by not accepting the person completely in the family,
right.
I think that all starts with our underlying prejudices and our underlying biases. So if we are able to identify and kind of reflect onto them, probably we are able to control that. That's first thing. Secondly, we also need to think, I think it's a very cliche thing, but I still would say that we need to see and we need to kind of feel that what if somebody does the same to me? So the moment you become more empathetic, the moment you're able to kind of put yourself in somebody else's shoes and realize that, oh God, if this happens to me, would I be able to take it? I think that's also a moment of transformation, at least mental transformation and emotional transformation that you might come across. And lastly, please remember that if that we all are brought to in this world, and there is a lot of diversity here, and if we want to really thrive as a whole race of humans, there is no way that we can't accept diversity. We have to accept diversity. And a lot of times people used to say that develop more tolerance. I'm very against that idea, because when you're tolerating somebody,
right,
it's so negative connotation. It's like, I'm just tolerating you. Why should I tolerate you? Why can't I embrace you? Why can't I appreciate the difference that you and I have? So I think if you start appreciating that difference, if you start becoming more mindful of your own choices, of even words, because a lot of times we just hurt somebody by even just a word. I mean, a word is like worse than a sword, I think, at times. So I think if we can just identify that much within ourselves, we would definitely become much better human beings, and definitely not bullies at all.
I think this is very insightful, and even though we were primarily talking about children, I think even as adults sometimes we exhibit this behavior. I think it's worse because as adults we are expected to know more than children, at least, but I think sometimes we know way less than them, because we refuse to look at ourselves. We often like to place the blame on somebody else, that, oh, that person behaves like this, that's why this was my reaction. I think anyway, for better mental health as well, I think the first step is anyway looking into yourself, because you can't really change somebody else. The first change that you can take or start is within yourself. And I think acceptance is the other word that's crucial. So like Aaakanksha pointed out, that if we can be more self-reflective, I think that can also help us not be a bully to somebody else. Thank you for watching this episode, and do suggest or give feedback about anything particular that you would want me to discuss in these episodes, and also subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow us on our social media handles. Thank you.